They were once dazzling icons, legends loved and admired by the world. But behind the spotlight lay a silent battle with an invisible enemy, HIV/AIDS, in a period shrouded in fear and stigma. They chose to confront rather than conceal. With courage, they publicly shared the truth and used their life stories to sow hope, contributing to changing the perceptions of an entire generation. These are not just stories of loss or tragedy, but also journeys of bravery, love, and an indomitable will to live. They transformed pain into strength and stigma into motivation, inspiring millions around the world. Cookie Mueller, rebellious, captivating, and possessing an irresistible energy. She's not just an actress, writer, or underground culture icon, but also the embodiment of freedom and strong personality within contemporary art. With a free-spirited, sharp and passionate soul, Cookie leaves her mark wherever she goes. From the unique films of John Waters to the gritty art scene of New York, she's not simply present, she becomes the soul of the atmosphere. But in the late 1980s, as the AIDS epidemic silently impacted many artistic and creative communities, Cookie Mueller also faced the disease. Even so, she didn't let fear hold her back. Cookie confronted it all with the spirit that has defined her throughout her life: strong, genuine, and unyielding. Despite her declining health, she continued to write, create, and share emotionally charged essays, sometimes edgy, sometimes painful, but always vibrant and truthful. On November 10, 1989, Cookie Mueller passed away at the age of 40. But her death was not only the loss of a talented artist, but also the end of a rare artistic personality, a person who lived life to the fullest with freedom, creativity, and a voice that never remained silent. Peter Allen, an artist who not only sang with his unique voice, but also with all the emotion and passion from his heart. With his dazzling performance style, sparkling costumes, and captivating energy, he always transformed the stage into his own world. A musical icon from Australia, Peter not only brought joy and emotion to his audience, but also became a proud image of someone who lived authentically in a time when society was still full of prejudice and reservations. In 1984, Peter Allen was diagnosed with HIV, but instead of withdrawing from the spotlight, he chose to continue living life to the fullest with art. Peter continued to perform, appearing with a radiant smile and a spirit full of enthusiasm, as if music was the source of strength that helped him overcome the most difficult days. However, as his condition worsened, the stages that once erupted with cheers became quieter over time. And then, on June 18, 1992, Peter Allen passed away at the age of 48 due to complications related to AIDS. His passing left a profound sense of loss, not only among his fans, but also among the community that had seen him as a symbol of hope and the freedom to live authentically. Peter Allen did not choose to face life in silence or fear. He lived with courage, with the belief that music and sincerity could connect people. And it is this that has made his legacy resonate to this day like a beautiful melody that has never ceased to play. Lara rocks a girl who was once silent but ultimately chose to speak out. When she entered the adult film industry in 2004, Lara was confident, hopeful, and believed in a bright future. But after just one filming session, her life changed completely. Lacking proper safety precautions and warnings, Lara received the news that she was HIV positive just weeks later. She was only 21 years old at the time. This news quickly shocked the adult entertainment industry and sparked a fierce debate about workplace safety. For Lara, it was a huge shock that left her devastated for a long time. But instead of disappearing from public view, she decided to confront the truth. Lara became one of the first to publicly share her experience, bringing to light issues that many had previously avoided discussing, from the lack of safety to the pressure and mental trauma behind the scenes of this industry. Her story not only attracted media attention, but also prompted changes in industry practices and a reassessment of health and safety standards for performers. Following that ordeal, Lara Rocks gradually became a positive voice for HIV education, raising awareness about health and safety and the rights of workers in the entertainment industry. She participated in numerous interviews, documentaries, and sharing programs to recount her journey honestly and sincerely. By 2025, Lara continues to speak out with strength and resilience, from someone who experienced a major shock in her life. She has become a symbol of courage in facing the truth and fighting for positive change. Her voice is no longer a voice of silence, but a reminder of awareness, responsibility, and compassion. Ian Charleston, an actor who left a lasting mark not only on stage and screen, but also lives on in the hearts of art lovers. He shone brightly in Chariots of Fire, a role that cemented his name in the minds of audiences with its strength, subtlety, and irreplaceable quality. A natural talent, a soul imbued with Shakespearean spirit, and a quiet but passionate artist. In 1986, at the height of his career, he faced a cruel and unwelcome event. He contracted HIV, instead of making a fuss or complaining. Ian quietly moved on. He continued to act, to dedicate himself, and to live fully in his profession, with the serenity of someone who understood his time was running out. In his final role as Hamlet, each line about life and death resonated like a gentle farewell to the audience. No one knew they were witnessing the final moments of an artist quietly closing his life's journey. Ian Charleston died on January 6, 1990, at the age of 40, but his passing did not end in silence. According to his last wishes, the cause of death was announced. He died from complications related to AIDS. It wasn't a confession for attention, but an act of courage and dignity in a society still steeped in prejudice. Ian was not only a talented artist, but also a symbol of sincerity and pride in the truth. And so, he lives on in memory, in art, and in the hearts of so many who loved him. Gia Karangi, a beauty that burst forth too quickly, too intensely in the glamorous world of fashion. Before social media existed, before the concept of supermodel became a global icon, Gia was already a name that captivated the entire fashion industry. She possessed not only striking beauty, but also a wild, alluring, and mesmerizing aura that was impossible to ignore. Gia appeared like a dazzling storm on the runway, bold, different, and full of life, then vanished amidst the storms of her soul, and no one could hold her back. Behind the spotlight, the lavish photo shoots, and the public's adoration was a young woman struggling with loneliness, hurt, and the spirals of addiction. In a world that always worships perfect appearances, few truly saw the cracks behind her smile. In 1986, Gia was diagnosed with HIV from injectable drug use, a huge shock at a time when the disease was shrouded in fear, misunderstanding, and countless prejudices. She died on November 18, 1986. At the young age of 26, an age when she should have just begun her long-awaited dreams. Gia's final days were devoid of applause, bright lights, or praise. Only the silence of her hospital room remained, and a life slowly ended in solitude. But what people remember Gia for is not just the beauty that once captivated the world, but also the story behind that glamour. Gia Karangi's life became a symbol of the dark side of fame, where beauty can be celebrated wildly, but true suffering is easily overlooked. Her story is a reminder of the fragility of fame and the value of understanding the human side behind the perfect photograph. Though she has left this world, Gia remains present in cinema, books, and the memories of those who have never forgotten an icon who was both brilliant and tragic. Philly Bongoli Ludaya, an artist who chose to speak out instead of remaining silent, one of Uganda's most beloved singers. His music resonated at weddings, large gatherings, and spread across Africa as a symbol of joy, love, and hope. But in 1987, Philly shocked the continent when he publicly acknowledged that he was living with HIV. At that time, the disease was still shrouded in fear, misunderstanding, and prejudice. Many chose to keep it a secret. But Philly did the opposite. He faced the truth with unwavering courage, without avoidance or self-pity. He transformed his experience into music, creating songs filled with pain, sincerity, and a fragile glimmer of hope for those in despair. From then on, his journey was no longer just about performing on stage. Philly traveled far and wide to share his story, urging people to view the disease with compassion instead of fear. He used his voice and fame to break the silence that had gripped society at the time. Some were moved. Some were skeptical, but millions listened. He transformed art into a voice of awareness and truth into a force for change in the community. Philly Bongali Ludaya passed away on December 15, 1989, at the young age of 38. But what he left behind transcends music. His voice lives on as a symbol of courage, sincerity, and the desire to live truthfully. He was not only a talented artist from Uganda, but also someone who helped change how an entire generation viewed HIV and the people silently battling it. Karen Dior, a bold, captivating woman who refused to conform to any stereotypes. She became a pioneering icon of freedom and individuality in adult entertainment, not only as an actress and director, but also as a powerful voice for the right to live authentically. As a transgender woman in a time of intense prejudice, Karen chose to step into the spotlight with rare confidence and strength. In 1990, at the height of her career, Karen was diagnosed with HIV, but instead of retreating in the face of adversity, she continued to move forward. Karen dedicated herself to creative work, behind the camera telling new stories and opening up more space for representation for the LGBTQ community. For her, art was not just about performance, but also about a way for people to be seen, heard, and to exist in the most authentic way possible. Karen Dior did not let her illness define her life. She faced every challenge with pride, an indomitable spirit, and a fierce desire to live. From her artistic projects to her community voice, she gradually became a symbol of strength and personal freedom, a person who dared to overcome the limitations that society had imposed on her. In 2004, Karen Dior passed away at the age of 37 due to complications related to AIDS. Her death may not have received much media attention, but for those who knew Karen's story, she will forever be an image of courage and a spirit of living authentically. A person who used her own life to prove that being different is not something to hide, but something to be proud of. Elizabeth Glaser was a mother, a wife, a woman who never aspired to be an icon. Yet she ended up being remembered worldwide as the embodiment of resilience. Her story didn't begin in the spotlight of fame, but in a quiet hospital room, where a blood transfusion during childbirth inadvertently marked a tragic turning point in her life. From that moment, HIV entered her life silently, unexpectedly, and harshly. After unknowingly transmitting the virus to her first daughter and then her son, Elizabeth endured irreplaceable pain when her little daughter died at the age of 7. But instead of succumbing to loss, she chose to rise again. Her broken heart became a source of strength to continue fighting. In a time when HIV/AIDS was still shrouded in fear and stigma, especially for children, Elizabeth Glaser did not choose silence. She spoke out, she acted. She founded the Elizabeth Glaser AIDS Pediatric Foundation, transforming grief into hope and a call for change for millions of other families. With sincerity and unwavering determination, she appeared before Congress many times, her eyes filled with emotion yet also with resolve, urging people to care more, act more, and treat those affected by the disease with more compassion, not just for her own family, but for countless children around the world who need to be heard and protected. On December 3, 1994, Elizabeth passed away at the age of 47, but her story never ended. Her legacy continues to spread, as the foundation bearing her name has helped raise billions of dollars for support and research, bringing hope to countless children worldwide. Elizabeth Glaser did not just fight for life, she inspired a profound change that transcended her own life. Leading the list is Amanda Blake, a familiar face, beloved by millions of American viewers. the woman with striking red hair and a powerful presence as Kitty Russell in Gunsmoke. Throughout 19 seasons, she became an icon of strength, charm, and pride in the harsh Wild West. But behind her radiant smile on screen lay a silent battle few could imagine. In the late 1980s, rumors began to spread about HIV/AIDS. Many couldn't believe it, not Kitty Russell, and certainly not Amanda Blake. Initially, she chose to remain silent, as the world at that time was still filled with fear and stigma for those with the disease. But then the truth gradually came to light. In 1989, Amanda surprised the public by publicly disclosing her health status. From that moment, the disease, once considered taboo, took on a familiar face, a face that countless American families had followed weekly on television. Not content with simply sharing her personal story, Amanda Blake transformed her pain into action. She became a positive voice in raising awareness about HIV/AIDS, participating in community campaigns, and speaking frankly about the importance of health safety knowledge. Through her fame and courage and prejudice surrounding the disease, on August 16, 1989, Amanda Blake passed away at the age of 60, but she did not leave in silence. Amanda died as a strong woman who spoke out for countless others isolated by stigma. Her passing left many grieving, but her courage also led the public to begin viewing HIV/AIDS with greater empathy and understanding. In an era where many people are still afraid to speak out, Amanda Blake chose to confront the truth and tell it. Javier Munoz, a man who not only overcame adversity, but also shone brightly from the most difficult times. He stepped onto the Broadway stage as Alexander Hamilton, one of the most iconic roles, following in the footsteps of Lin-Manuel Miranda. But Javier carried more than just the pressure of a major role. He also carried the weight of a silent battle that forged his will in every step and every line of dialogue. In 2002, Munoz was diagnosed with HIV. He kept it a secret for many years, quietly facing the health challenges and mental pressure in the highly competitive entertainment industry. However, in 2016, Javier decided to no longer hide behind the spotlight or a celebrity persona. He appeared as his true self, publicly disclosing his health condition and becoming one of the first leading male actors on Broadway to openly share about living with HIV. His sincerity and courage helped break down many long-standing prejudices, opening up greater understanding and empathy from the public. Javier's talent moved the audience, but it was his resilience that was most profoundly inspiring. His story is not a tragedy, but a testament to the indomitable spirit in the face of adversity. He showed the world that HIV cannot define or limit a person's worth. Javier Munoz stands there strong, passionate, and continuing to inspire through his life journey. And sometimes, the most heartwarming performances begin in the moment a person dares to live authentically. Brad Davis, a talented Hollywood star, possessing a captivating charm that was both powerful and deeply complex. He entered film history with Midnight Express, winning a Golden Globe and leaving a lasting impression through his emotionally charged performances and eyes filled with anguish. But behind that glamour lay a silent battle that few understood. In the late 1980s, Brad Davis was diagnosed with HIV, a time when the disease was still shrouded in fear, stigma, and silence. Despite this, he did not give up his passion for art. He continued to appear on stage and in front of the camera, pouring his heart and soul into each role even as his health deteriorated. For Brad, each performance was not just a job, but a way for him to fight to stay true to himself amidst the overwhelming difficulties. When his health deteriorated and his career began to fade, Brad Davis refused to disappear in silence. He spoke out powerfully against indifference, social prejudices, and the way many people avoided discussing HIV/AIDS. His words were sometimes filled with anger and pain, but also reflected a yearning for empathy and humanity. On September 8, 1991, Brad Davis passed away at the age of 41 after a long battle with the disease. His passing not only deprived cinema of an exceptional talent, but also left behind much reflection on the courage to face the truth. Brad Davis did not let fear or stigma determine how he would be remembered. What he left behind was not only memorable roles, but also the image of a man who dared to face adversity and speak out for understanding in a time full of prejudice. John Holmes, a name once synonymous with fame and controversy in the adult film industry. He lived a life of glamour, public attention, and tumultuous events, becoming an unforgettable figure in popular culture at the time. But behind the fame and accolades lay a harsh reality he faced in his final years. In 1986, John Holmes was diagnosed with HIV, a time when fear of the pandemic was widespread, and society still had little understanding of the disease. Amidst pressure and prejudice, he chose to keep his health condition secret. This silence, whether stemming from fear, confusion, or a desire to protect himself, later became the focus of much debate and criticism. As the information gradually came to light, the image once considered iconic began to change in the public eye. The man who once stood at the center of attention now faced illness, isolation, and the backlash from the very industry that had propelled him to fame. Holmes' final years were marked by both physical and mental hardship. On March 13, 1988, he died at the age of 43 from complications related to AIDS, despite the controversy surrounding his life. John Holmes became part of a larger story about the HIV/AIDS outbreak, a period when ignorance and fear affected so many people. His story also serves as a reminder of the importance of awareness, responsibility, and facing the truth in the most difficult times. Billy Porter, an artist who never accepted being confined within outdated boundaries. He walked the red carpet not just to appear, but to transform each moment into a performance of charisma, bold, dazzling, and undeniably captivating. But behind the spotlight, the glamorous costumes, and the powerful voice lay a secret he had kept for 14 years. Billy lived with HIV. Diagnosed in 2007, at a time when his career was struggling and his spirit had hit rock bottom, Billy chose to remain silent. He continued to present a strong and perfect image to the public, while inside he carried the fear of judgment, ostracism, and losing everything he had worked so hard to build. That silence gradually became the greatest burden he faced each day. Until 2021, Billy Porter decided to speak the truth in an emotional interview. After more than a decade of hiding his life, he publicly shared that he was living with HIV. That moment was not just an acknowledgement, but a liberation where fear was finally replaced by freedom and courage. Through his honesty, Billy transformed what had once hurt him into a source of strength that inspired millions. Today, Billy Porter is known not only as a star of Broadway and film, but also as an icon of confidence, representation, and positive change. He uses his own life story to prove that truth doesn't weaken people, on the contrary. It can make them stronger than ever. And with all his pride, Billy has rewritten his life in a way no one can deny. Isaac Asimov, a man who expanded the limits of human imagination with stories of robots, galactic empires, and a future far beyond his own time. He was not only a science fiction writer, but also an extraordinary intellect. A man who dedicated his life to explaining the universe through knowledge and words. But like everyone else, he could not escape the harsh tragedies of real life. In 1983, during what seemed like a routine heart surgery, an unforeseen incident silently changed his life. From a blood transfusion, Isaac Asimov contracted HIV at a time when medicine was still limited, and society was shrouded in fear and prejudice. Faced with this situation, he chose silence, not out of weakness, but because he understood that the world at that time was not yet open enough to accept this truth with empathy. Instead of speaking out, he continued to write. He wrote incessantly, as if each page were a way to fight against the limitations of time. His essays, scientific works, and even the final chapters of his autobiography were all completed during a period when he knew his health was declining. Isaac Asimov died on April 6, 1992, from serious complications related to his illness. It wasn't until many years later, at the request of his family, that the truth was revealed to the public. When the world learned of his story, it was not only shocking news, but also a profound reminder of human fragility in the face of unforeseen events. Despite being a brilliant mind with over 500 books and countless ideas that transformed modern literature, Isaac Asimov still faced very ordinary limitations, but perhaps what he left behind, greater than his writings, is his legacy of knowledge, resilience, and a desire to live a meaningful life until his final days. Because sometimes, the brightest stars don't need to speak too much. Their light is enough to illuminate generations. Mike Bittler, a racer with a quiet, rebellious spirit, yet never ordinary. He wasn't the attention seeker, but every appearance on the track left an unforgettable mark. In the high-pressure, competitive world of Formula One in the 1970s, Mike existed as a different kind of person, discreet, strong, and always keeping his unspoken feelings to himself. He drove with the fierce determination of someone who raced not just for victory, but for the right to be himself. In that sporting environment, where traditional masculinity was almost an unwritten rule, being true to oneself was incredibly difficult. Mike chose silence, walking between the stadium lights and the private shadows that few understood. Close friends could sense his true self, teammates sometimes guessed it, while the media almost always avoided anything that deviated from the prevailing norms of the time. After retiring from racing, Mike moved to Los Angeles seeking a more peaceful life, away from the roar of engines and public attention. But that quiet time didn't last long. In 1988, he died of complications related to AIDS at the age of 48, as quietly as he had lived most of his life. Mike Bittler didn't leave behind any sensational speeches or powerful public statements, but his very existence, in an era where differences were often hidden or judged, became a unique symbol. A man courageous in his own way, quiet, steadfast and true to himself in a world not yet fully ready to accept it. Tina Chow, a fashion icon who once captivated the world with her elegant yet sophisticated beauty. She is remembered not only as a model and muse for major fashion houses, but also as a highly innovative jewelry designer who helped redefine the concept of refinement and style in high society. Tina embodied intellectual beauty, charisma, and minimalist elegance, becoming an endless source of inspiration for generations of artists and designers. However, behind that dazzling glamour lay a silent battle that not everyone saw. In the early 1990s, Tina publicly revealed her HIV status, a shocking truth given the lingering misunderstanding and prejudice surrounding the disease, especially within the high society where she once shone. Many sources suggest she may have contracted it through a relationship with a bisexual French aristocrat. And that story quickly became a painful reminder of the fragility of both trust and security in seemingly glamorous lives. Tina Chow did not choose loud confrontation or shocking statements. She spoke in her own way with the calmness, elegance, and dignity that had become her hallmark. In her later years, she used her fame to help change perceptions, helping the fashion world re-examine a reality once hidden behind a perfect facade. She proved that influence doesn't necessarily come from ostentation, but can come from sincerity and steadfastness. Tina Chow died on January 24, 1992, at the age of 41, leaving a huge void in the art and fashion world. But her legacy doesn't end with images or designs. It also lies in her courage and indomitable beauty. Tina continues to live on in the memory of the fashion industry, and in the inspiration she imparted to those who dare to change the way the world perceives beauty and humanity. John Curry, an Olympic figure skating champion, changed the way the world viewed the sport. He not only brought top-tier technique, but also infused the spirit of ballet onto the ice, transforming each movement into a soft, delicate and emotionally charged artistic language. However, behind that graceful beauty lay a life lived in restraint and silence in the face of contemporary prejudices. In an era where sports were still rigidly tied to masculine stereotypes, John Curry shone while concealing a part of his true self. He was gay, a fact he couldn't openly acknowledge for much of his career. In 1987, he was diagnosed with HIV, an event that completely changed his life in his later years. Instead of disappearing or withdrawing in the face of adversity, John Curry chose to confront his fate more directly. In 1991, he publicly revealed his health condition. It wasn't a tragic confession, but a powerful declaration. That he remained himself, and that his illness couldn't erase his value or his character. John Curry died on April 15, 1994, from AIDS-related heart failure at the age of 44. His passing shocked the sports and arts world. But his legacy lies not only in his medals or flawless performances on the ice, but also in his spirit of daring to live authentically. Daring to break stereotypes, and daring to bring artistic beauty closer to personal freedom. His image continues to inspire athletes and individuals seeking the courage to be themselves, without concealment and without fear. Klaus Nomi, a voice with a surreal quality, as if it stepped out of a world not of earth. He appeared on stage in a style unlike anyone else. A voice blending classical opera, cold, mechanical gestures, and futuristic, bizarre, and captivating costumes. In the late 1970s, upon arriving in New York, Klaus Nomi quickly became a unique phenomenon, blurring the lines between music, performance, and visual art. He didn't simply perform, he transformed the stage into a space where beauty, eccentricity, and imagination intertwined into an unforgettable experience. Yet behind that surreal image was a very real person, fragile and lonely. When the HIV/AIDS pandemic began to spread, society was still mired in fear and misunderstanding, and those first affected had almost no significant support. Against this backdrop, Klaus Nomi was diagnosed with HIV in the early 1980s, when medicine still lacked effective treatments. He faced the disease in silence, with few options, and almost exclusively relied on art as his last source of spiritual solace. His final performances thus took on a different tone, still the soaring voice, still the unmistakable style. But hidden within them was the fragility of a man slowly drifting away from life. No longer pure eccentricity, but a haunting presence, as if each appearance was an unspoken farewell. On August 6, 1983, Klaus Nomi passed away at the age of 39. His death left a huge void in the avant-garde art world, but at the same time, it cemented the image of an artist who dared to be utterly different. He is remembered not only as a unique voice, but also as a symbol of loneliness, of an era that had not yet grasped individuals who transcended all stereotypes. His legacy remains both brilliant and haunting, as a reminder that art is sometimes born from the most fragile aspects of humanity. Jean Anthony Ray, a dancer who rose to fame and then quietly faded from the spotlight. He achieved global fame for his role as Leroy Johnson in Fame, where he barely needed to act as he was the lifeblood of the character. Without formal training, Jean captivated audiences with his instincts, authenticity, and irreplaceable natural charisma. But the rapid rise to fame brought with it many challenges. He faced addiction, personal instability, and the pressures of a harsh industry. As the spotlight faded, his life entered a difficult phase. In 1995, he was diagnosed with HIV and quietly battled the disease without a public comeback or farewell. On November 14, 2003, Jean Anthony Ray passed away at the age of 41 due to complications from AIDS and a stroke. His passing brings to a close a life full of ups and downs, but the image of a dancer who gave his all on stage will live on as a symbol of pure talent and a brilliant yet fragile artistic dream. Magic Johnson, a name that silenced the entire sports world on that historic moment of November 7, 1991. At that time, Earvin Magic Johnson, a legend of the Los Angeles Lakers, NBA champion. An icon of joy on the court, stepped onto the press conference stage with a calm but heavy gaze. He took the microphone and revealed the shocking truth. He had HIV and would be leaving the team. A short statement. Yet it changed the atmosphere of the entire global sports world. To the public, Magic embodied strength, speed, and victory, so his facing a disease once shrouded in fear and prejudice was almost unbelievable. But instead of disappearing, Magic Johnson chose to step into the light. He didn't shy away, he didn't remain silent, but confronted reality directly. In the years that followed, he began treatment, maintained an optimistic spirit, and transformed his personal experience into an inspiring journey. From an event that seemed to end his career, he forged a new path, one where his voice could help change societal perceptions. The Magic Johnson Foundation was established, focusing on education, testing, and raising awareness about HIV/AIDS, especially in vulnerable communities. From an athlete, he became an influential social activist, contributing to breaking down stereotypes and bringing the disease out of the realm of silence. Years after that shocking moment, Magic Johnson continues to live strongly and positively. He has become clear proof that HIV is no longer the end, but a part of life that can be managed and faced. The moment in 1991 was not just a personal statement, but a turning point that changed how the world viewed the disease, from fear to understanding, from silence to action. Anthony Perkins, a talented actor, once considered to have the potential to go even further in Hollywood. He wasn't just a voice actor. He conveyed emotion through his eyes, silence, and deeply human moments. He possessed a subtle allure, enough to make the camera linger and captivate the audience with every appearance. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, his career showed great potential for a long and brilliant future. But just as his future seemed bright, life took a cruel turn. He was diagnosed with HIV at a time when the disease was still shrouded in fear, ignorance, and heavy stigma. His health gradually deteriorated, and with it, his career opportunities narrowed. The spotlight that once shone on him faded, leaving behind a long and lonely silence. On March 29, 1995, Anthony Perkins died of AIDS-related pneumonia at the age of 42. His family chose not to conceal the truth, but instead used his story to raise awareness and support for the community, particularly through activities related to the Los Angeles AIDS Project. Although not known for major records or titles, his life left a profound mark in its own unique way. It is the story of a talented artist, the fragility of fame, and the quiet courage of a person facing the harshest of fate. Afra Heza, a voice that rose from Yemeni roots and spread its influence across cultural boundaries. Many likened her to the Madonna of the East, but in reality, Afra was a unique individual. A sophisticated blend of ancient tradition and modern pop. Each of her songs served as a bridge between the past and the present, between folk traditions and the global stage. With her clear and emotionally rich voice, Afra Heza captivated audiences worldwide. Becoming one of Israel's most prominent cultural icons, she not only sang, but also carried a legacy, making music a meeting place of history, memory, and emotion. In 2000, her sudden death shocked the public. Initially, the cause of death was reported as pneumonia, but later information suggested that Afra Heza had been secretly living with HIV, possibly related to her personal life and her partner. However, she never publicly disclosed this during her lifetime, perhaps due to a desire for privacy or fear of the prejudice that still existed in society at the time. Even after her death, the story surrounding her illness continued to be debated and mourned. But most of the public remembers her with love and sorrow, because if such a clear and pure voice could pass away so prematurely, it serves as a reminder that human fragility spares no one. Afra Heza died on February 23, 2000, at the age of 42. but her music continues to live on, from I Am Ninalu to her contributions to the Prince of Egypt. Her voice resonates like a timeless whisper. Afra needs no lengthy explanations. Her music itself has become the ultimate language. Gentle yet powerful, reminding us that some voices, even in silence, never fade away. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. If you find the content interesting and meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the latest videos. Each of your likes, shares, and comments is a great source of motivation to help me continue to bring more interesting stories. See you in the next videos.